There have been lawsuits before showing that the right to keep and bear arms does logically extend to the right to acquire those arms. It's why governors, even in liberal strongholds, hellholes, like Massachusetts, found themselves in hot water for closing down gun shops during COVID. But according to a judge in Colorado, the right to actually acquire a gun doesn't exist. So this judge is a dinosaur, both literally and in his interpretation of the Second Amendment. He's a Jimmy Carter appointee that got put on the bench in 1977 and is almost 90 years old. No offense to any 90-year-old that may be watching this video, I'm sure you are perfectly mentally spry and at the very least have a better understanding of constitutional law up until this point. Now I know, who am I, this little YouTuber, to be arguing that I understand constitutional law better than this judge, but Bruin is pretty cut and dry. The case is Rocky Mountain Gun Owners v. Polis and involves Colorado's new 3-day waiting period. The judge, John L. Kane, denied the group's request for an injunction while the lawsuit moves forward, writing, "Plaintiffs contend that the words keep and bear in the Second Amendment are implicated by the waiting period required by the Act. In Heller, the Supreme Court examined the normal meaning of those words at the time of the nation's founding, reviewing definitions from contemporaneous dictionaries. As the court explained, the 1773 edition of Samuel Johnson's Dictionary of the English Language defined keep as most relevantly to retain, not to lose, and to have in custody. The court then turned to the word bear and determined that it means to carry. The court clarified that when bear is used with arms, however, the term has a meaning that refers to carrying for a particular purpose, confrontation. So, putting all the pieces together, the court found that the text of the Second Amendment guarantees the individual right to possess and carry weapons in case of confrontation. From this reading of the plain text, it is clear the relevant conduct impacted by the waiting period, the receipt of a paid-for firearm without delay, is not covered. Still, plaintiffs attempt to equate the words obtain and possess. But these words are not equivalent. To keep, under the definitions provided in Heller, meant to retain an object one already possessed. It did not mean to receive a newly paid-for item, and it certainly did not mean to receive that item without delay. Likewise, having weapons indicates the weapons are already in one's possession, not that one is receiving them. So, by his decision and logic, you have the right to keep a gun, to possess it, to have it in your custody, to not lose it, but don't actually have a right to obtain it, even though obtaining a firearm precludes having it in your custody. He also went on to say that, even if someone were to argue that commercial sales are covered under the Second Amendment, the waiting period would stand up in court because, according to him, there were no gun stores at the time of the Second Amendment, and shipments of arms could take weeks or months to reach any given city or town. And so, by his understanding, even a 6-month waiting period would be perfectly legal and constitutional. So already his ruling doesn't fall in line with Bruin. You could go to anyone with a gun within walking or riding distance and offer to buy it via cash transaction, no waiting period. Boom, historical tradition of the Second Amendment. He then compares the waiting period laws of today to laws against public drunkenness as proof that a waiting period is in the historical tradition of firearm regulation. It might sound completely unrelated, because it is, but he says it fits because Colorado says the waiting period is to prevent people from being impulsive, and drunk people can also be impulsive. This will be a fun one to follow as it moves forward, and I cannot wait to see what Judge Kane has for us next. That's it for this one, guys. You know all the algorithm things, and again, as a reminder, don't forget to check out my second channel, The Liberty Homestead, as I know some of you have been asking about Liberty Toddler, and she helps me with all kinds of gardening and canning goodness over there. Anyways, as always, thanks for tuning in, and happy shooting.